Well, hi. My name is Tim Underwood. I am a clinical licensed therapist, and I work in the Himalayas of all places. Kind of obscure, but that's okay. People go up the mountain, they go down the mountain, and I operate a program in which we talk about the ups and downs of life. I've been asked to speak about a couple I had one time. It took the Himalayas, and that would be Bryan and Heather. And very nice couple, very nice people. Heather, fantastic. Bryan, kind of a loser. We went up the mountain, and all things were going pretty well for the most part. And well, we were probably about a half mile from the summit of Mount Everest. Several days journey, and the team was given specific instructions. Look, whatever you do, don't make any loud noises. The winds were really high, so what we don't want to do is trigger an avalanche or anything like that. And of course, typical for this couple, everybody kind of got it, and except for Bryan. And then Bryan just starts breaking out into song, and no one really knows why, which of course triggers an avalanche. And so we're buried under, I don't know, 9 feet of snow. Who knows? But luckily we had some survival gear, and it kind of seemed like the end. And while we're buried under the snow, it became even more apparent how wonderful Heather really is, and how much of a loser Bryan is. When you're in close quarters like that with people, you get to know them really good. And I'm a clinical therapist, and so it was rough.
And I've known Bryan and Heather. Well, I've known Bryan longer than Heather. I met Bryan back in 770 BC, something like that, living in his parents' basement. He's always looking for jobs, doing odds and ends stuff. And China came to me at one point. I think it was 772, a couple years after I'd met Bryan. And China came to me, and they were like, "Kevin, we need protection." And I was like, "You mean protection for, part of the country or the capital or the, And they were like, "No, the whole country." And I was like, "Wait a minute, this is going to be a pretty decent project." So I jumped all over. I was like, "This is going to be good money." And China's got money. And I thought, I'm going to need help with this. So I went to Bryan and asked if he would help me. And he jumped all over it, So we sat down one night, and we were trying to come up with this: how are we going to protect China from all these mythical creatures, these dragons and invading armies and stuff like that. And we came up with this plan to build this great fence around China.
So I think I met Mom about 10 years ago in, I think it was 1977. I was working on this weird time portal thing, and it actually worked. But then a bunch of aliens from the future started coming through and just blowing everything up, and it was not fun. So then Mom came up, and apparently she's really good with portals. So she came through and just fixed everything, and it was great. And Bryan was just kind of there roasting corn dogs on the embers. But, it turned out well. They were pretty good. It was a weird day.
And you're not going to believe it, but we were rescued by Yetis, of all things. Not the cooler. No, not the Yeti cooler. There was a family of them. There was 9 of them. A mom, pa. I think there was a few grandparents and some kids. And they took us in, and they got me this, which was really cool. Because they're hairy. They became very friendly, and they seemed to want to help. And they tried to get us to play a game of charades. And I think it was, I'm not sure, but I still think to this day it was kind of like, if we guess all the charades, then they're going to help us get out of there and let us go and stuff. So Bryan had to, answer the charades, and I think the actual movement was this, and then there was they were pointing towards snow. So Bryan, in his loserdom says, shoveling snow. And it turned out to be like Yeti symbol for like endoplasmic reticulum or something. It was really weird. It had something to do with biology. I don't know. I'd never heard anything like that before. But I knew what they were talking about, and so did Heather. So thank God she knew. So she was able to intervene right before everybody was, killed.
So I met Heather and Bryan about 2 years ago, I'd say. After that, I had a little bit of a run-in with a yak incident. Don't really want to talk about that. I got amnesia. So technically, I met them last week. Heather, she's cool. She's nice. I like her. Bryan, my dad, he's iffy. I don't know about that guy.
Okay, it was in the early 1900s when I first met Heather and Bryan, and we were in France. They had just finished building some wall somewhere, and I was there to watch the Olympics. They were there to participate. They were going to be on the croquet team, which is weird because Bryan has this huge fear of spheres, and everyone knows that the croquet has spheres everywhere. Well, the big day came for the trials, and we were anxiously waiting to see how they would do. And Bryan went running out there, and there were spheres everywhere, not to mention that they were doing shot put right next door. And Bryan saw all the spheres laying out there, and he started yelling, "Oh, the roundness, the roundness," and he took off running towards the Arc de Triomphe. Unfortunately, Heather and I could not run as fast as him. When we finally caught up to him, he was laying under the Arc de Triomphe in this ball, which was odd because he doesn't like spheres, and he was in the shape of a sphere, so I don't understand any of that. But anyway, Heather was finally able to talk him out of his roundness to get him to stand up, and since they did not compete in the trials, France was the only team that did, so croquet's never been in the Olympics since.
So Heather came along and was looking at the project, and she was like, "Gosh, you guys, this is awesome, but I mean, this chain link fence, the links in the fence are so big that someone could just slip right through the holes." And we're like, "Well, you know what? That's probably right." My wife stepped in at this point, so Kelly and Heather put their heads together, and they're like, "Why don't you guys build bricks and stuff around the fence?" Bryan and I were like, "That's crazy, this is going to take hundreds of years." I mean, this it went from a weekend project to hundreds of years, like in an instant. I didn't want to spend that much time on this fence. I wanted to go home and play video games, or watch a movie or something. But then the kicker, Bon showed up. Bon Jovi. He showed up, and he was like, "You know what? The girls are right. If Bon Jovi says to build a wall, we're like," and all the girls like, "Ah, Bon, I love you, Bon. Good, let's build a wall." And we were like, "All right, well, we got to do it." So we gave in. We finally gave in and started building this wall. And the wall. I mean, it took hundreds of years to build this thing. I mean, to this day, I don't know if any dragons have ever made it beyond the fence. I mean, it's protected China from a lot, and even the Great Depression. But I'll tell you what, Bryan and Heather, they're an awesome couple. But I'm just gonna be honest with you. I mean, Heather's the brains here. Okay, Bryan is like, I don't know, he's just the male counterpart.
But thanks to Heather's interventions, her her coolness in the moment, and her ability to just gloss over or allow others to gloss over Bryan's many faults. Very, very nice guy. Very nice guy. Means well. Definitely means well. All that said, we got out, and it's one of the most amazing tales I tell this day.
Heather and Bryan make a great team because Heather keeps Bryan from turning around, and she also got him to start juggling and being in a clown act, birthday parties in the mall. So they're a great team. They keep each other around.
The great thing about this couple is that Heather really represents the highs, and Bryan's pretty much the low part of it all.
Heather, Bryan, Bon, Jovi. Great team. They did an awesome job, and I couldn't have done it without them. We love you guys.
So look, I just found out Bryan was my long-lost twin brother like yesterday. So I haven't even met Heather or Bryan yet. But I'm supposed to meet them next week, and they sound pretty cool. Is that all you need from me?